Is a sham. It is Mayor de Blasio's big lie. So I think we have all of our speakers. So I think we're ready to get started. My name is Andrew Berman. I'm from Village Preservation. We've got tenants and housing groups from across the city and state. We've got neighborhood groups. We have artists represented. We have the neighborhoods of SoHo, NoHo, Chinatown, which in spite of what the mayor would have you believe is also very much affected by this plan. We are all united in our opposition to Mayor de Blasio's giant developer giveaway, which is what this plan is. It is a parting gift from our failed mayor in the final days of his administration to all of the developers who've been supporting him for years with campaign donations, who have been lobbying relentlessly for these kinds of changes. This is what they have been salivating over the opportunity to try to achieve. And the reason why it's happening now is because it's the very end of the de Blasio administration. So all of the lies that he's telling about what this plan will do, none of those truths will become clear until long after he's out of office, when all of the buildings start going up with little or no affordable housing in them, because the plan is actually structured to make it more financially enticing for developers to build without affordable housing than to build with it. And what the mayor also doesn't tell you is this plan incentivizes the destruction of long-term affordable housing in the neighborhood, rent-regulated, loft law units that long-time residents, lower income and moderate income residents, and disproportionately Asian American residents, especially in the Chinatown section of the rezoning, live in. They are the ones who will be affected by the plan, not the multimillionaires who live in comfy penthouses that they own. They're going to be fine. It's the folks who've been hanging on in this neighborhood in the rent-regulated and loft law housing that are going to be pushed out. And for what? For huge new high-rises that will contain little or no affordable housing, but will include big box chain retail stores, high-end office and hotel development, NYU dorms, and even luxury condos, as long as they limit it to no more than 25,000 square feet. All of those things, they don't have to include a single square foot of affordable housing in this new development. This is 1984. This is classic de Blasio doublespeak. This is the mayor's big lie, and we are here to say no. So our first speaker, and we're going to go through folks very quickly because we want to get into the hearing at 6:30, is Michael McKee from Tenants PAC.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Okay. So I can't quite tell. Thank you, Andrew, and welcome everybody. What a great crowd. I believe that every neighborhood, including affluent neighborhoods, should accept greater density to accommodate truly affordable housing. But this plan is not that plan. We cannot tolerate a plan that's going to produce luxury housing and dribs and drabs of so-called affordable housing, and puts a target on the back of the rent-regulated and law-protected tenants who are going to be pushed out of the neighborhood. So this is doublespeak. It is, as Andrew said, 1984. We have to stop it. There's a very tight timeline. The de Blasio administration is hoping to get this done before December 31st because of the ULURP calendar. That's a very tight time frame, but that's what they're going to try to do. And we have to oppose this every step of the way. So it's great to see you here. Let me encourage you to do what Andrew said, which is to sign up to speak. And you don't have to, speak for more than a minute or two. And you don't have to say anything except you oppose the plan. So thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Michael. It's great to have support from our state's premier tenants advocate group. I now want to ask Zishan Ning from the Chinatown Working Group to come speak. The Chinatown Working Group has been fighting for years for protections for Chinatown, and they know that this is exactly the wrong direction that the city should be moving in.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, my name is Jason. I'm from Chinatown Working Group. We've been fighting for a community-led zoning plan in Chinatown and the Lower East Side to protect our neighborhood from luxury high-rises. And we know that for years, the mayor have been pushing the racist zoning policies in our neighborhoods and across the city. He's pushing pro-developer plans in neighborhoods like Inwood, East Harlem, and rejected our plan, saying that we are too ambitious while we're just asking for protection. And now, when the mayor say that he's for social justice and anti-racist, we have to be aware. Is he suddenly making a change? No, this is exactly the same thing. He's trying to portray that he's anti-racist. He's trying to whitewash his racist legacy by displacing the neighborhoods of SoHo and NoHo as well, so that we get equality, right? Equality in displacement. And as you can see, this plan is a big lie because it's going to bring in market rate housing, luxury high-rises in Chinatown. So this plan is going to escalate displacement and destruction of our neighborhood. So we stand with our neighbors in SoHo and NoHo and strongly oppose this horrific plan and ask the city official to stand with us instead of helping Mayor de Blasio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. I now want to ask Kathy Wakeham to come speak from the Met Council on Housing, which is one of our city's premier housing and tenant organizing groups.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Kathleen Wakeham from Met Council on Housing. As a rent-stabilized tenant who has lived in the community for over 50 years, I do not recognize my community anymore. Neighbors are gone because they cannot afford the rent. Small businesses are closed because they cannot afford the rent either. De Blasio's tale of two cities continue in the wake of the pandemic, which devastated New Yorkers. Rather than preserve affordable housing, his SoHo NoHo rezoning plan will replace rent-regulated housing with luxury towers. We will have high-end renters and big-box stores for corporate retailers. Bringing true and deep affordable housing, he is displacing working-class people, Asian Americans, and artists from their rent-regulated homes. The SoHo NoHo rezoning plan is de Blasio's last gift to his developer donors. This rezoning must be voted down. If de Blasio's allies vote yes for another luxury development upzoning, we will remember you, and you will be voted out. The days of the politics of hypocrisy are ending, because we know that affordable housing is a term for displacement, unless true and deep affordable housing is preserved and built.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And as everybody knows, all of the community groups who have been involved with this have said we would embrace real, true, affordable housing built at scale that doesn't displace existing housing for residents, that doesn't include giant big box retail stores, that doesn't include big glitzy office buildings by the mayor's developer friends. But that's not what the mayor wants. The mayor wants to wrap his plan in this veneer of supposed affordable housing that will never materialize and destroy our neighborhoods in the process. Absolutely, it's a lie. Our next speaker is Sweeney from the SoHo Alliance.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I had a speech, but when everyone booed when they mentioned NYU dorms, you know, one of my favorite terms here is follow the money. And where did this plan come from? It was a plan originally intended just to legalize residential living, perhaps legalize retail, and bring it down to big box stores like Bloomingdale's and Nike's and...
Okay,
Now you got it. Got my 2 minutes ago.
We heard you.
All right, so this plan originated. Let's follow the money. Why is NYU all of a sudden being introduced in here? NYU was on the advisory board for 6 months, didn't say one word, and when asked do they want to come into SoHo and SoHo, they said no. All of a sudden, we're getting dormitories. Why?
They lied.
Because who was the originator of this plan? Vicky Bean. Where does Vicky Bean live? On West 11th Street. Who owns her building? NYU. In 1996, there were 5 people living in Vicky Bean's building. Now there are 3, because NYU displaced evicted 2 families. So she's living there rent-free. She's a former NYU professor, and her husband currently works for NYU. This is why we're having NYU dorms.
Just so everybody understands, at the last minute, the city inserted into the plan.
Megaphone, just pick up the megaphone.
Can you hear? Can you hear me now?
No! Pick up the megaphone. Use the megaphone. Do it through the megaphone.
How's this? No. All right, I'm just going to shout. I think the batteries ran out. So just so everybody knows, at the last minute, the city inserted into the plan a provision that would allow NYU unlimited ability to expand in SoHo and NoHo. And if and when they do, there's no affordable housing requirements attached to their development. So this plan is a sham in every way imaginable. I now want to ask
Speak louder. People can't hear you.
I'm just going to have to try to listen. So I now want to ask Helen Freeman from the Historic Districts Council, a citywide preservation organization.
All right, I'll do my best. As Andrew said, Historic Districts Council is a citywide advocate for New York's historic neighborhoods. HDC works with communities throughout the 5 boroughs to encourage the preservation and enhancement of our neighborhood's historic character. The SoHo NoHo rezoning proposal has the potential to be profoundly damaging to the designated landmark properties of the historic district. It encompasses and to the practice of historic preservation throughout New York City. Landmark designation does not concern itself with use. Landmarking does not stop the development of housing, nor does it mandate the price of what that housing might cost. Some of the most densely populated areas in New York City are landmark districts and have been for decades. To imply that landmark prevents the development of new housing and development is simply not correct. Look at Dumbo, Gansevoort, Tribeca, and even SoHo and NoHo. The population in all these formerly commercial neighborhoods has increased after they were landmarked. Protecting historic buildings does rely upon having the underlying zoning match up with the existing buildings. If the city increases the underlying zoning of these buildings, encouraging much more bulk than they currently have, it puts an enormous strain on the Landmarks Commission. Shall I? All right. Yeah. If the city increases the underlying zoning of these buildings, encouraging much more bulk than they currently have, it puts enormous strain on the Landmarks Commission to keep the landmark building intact. If city planning says a 15-story building can be built where a 7-story building currently stands, how can the Landmarks Commission say no? This baked-in conflict strains the system and is unfair to both property owners and the agencies. This is not an unknown fact or a new situation. Over the past 55 years, many historic districts have been rezoned after landmarking in order to bring the underlying zoning into better compliance under the LPC's regulatory standards. It is sound urban planning to do so. If adopted, the SoHo NoHo rezoning plan will be the first time that HDC is aware of where the underlying zoning of a historic district is deliberately adjusted to be less aligned with the existing built environment. This disjunction pre-plans a conflict between city regulations and undermines the preservation purpose explicitly put forward by landmark designation. It sets a terrible and damaging precedent. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and I appreciate your patience as we work out these amplification issues. So our next speaker is Pete Davies from the Broadway Residents Coalition.
I'm from Broadway Residents Coalition, and
Today we stand in opposition to the mayor's SoHo NoHo plan. We question the city's reckless proposal to upzone the neighborhoods. It's being rammed through during a pandemic. Does the mayor think we're too distracted to notice that his scheme eviscerates the creative foundation of these two neighborhoods? The mayor's plan does not guarantee a single unit of affordable housing. It is built on massive transfers of value and wealth, chiefly benefiting commercial owners. Even worse, the city's plan singles out residential loft owners by implementing a punitive loft conversion fee. It leaves renters vulnerable, particularly senior rent-regulated tenants, and all but guarantees displacement and destabilization of the entire area, including nearby neighborhoods in Chinatown and Little Italy. The irresponsible de Blasio rezoning plan for SoHo and NoHo is corrupt to its core. It cannot be fixed. It must be rejected.
Thank you so much, Pete. And as I mentioned, we have pretty much unanimity from our neighborhoods here, SoHo, NoHo, and Chinatown. And so I'm now going to ask Jeannie Wilkie from the NoHo Neighborhood Association to speak.
Hi, I'll speak loud, 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 and short, short, short. Supposedly, it was a famous con man, George C. Parker, who sold the Brooklyn Bridge to gullible Marx on false promises. Now, it is the mayor and city planning acting as the con man, not only selling the community false promises, but acting as the obvious front man for large real estate and campaign donor interests. The city's plan must be scrapped. They need to go back to the drawing board. Instead of trying to con us anymore by pretending to listen to us, but instead dismissing us, the city must commit to working hand in hand with the community, starting with our alternative community plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you know, as many of you know, we had an election here in New York City last night. And in the first council district, which covers most of the proposed rezoning area, it looks like the winner is Chris Marte, campaigned on a platform, among other things, of opposing the SoHo NoHo plan. So we call on the mayor, the City Planning Commission, our borough president, and the City Council to stop this plan. Shoving it through in the middle of a pandemic is wrong under any circumstances, but certainly this plan, which will only make the problems that it claims to be fixing worse, is the wrong approach and should never be done at any time. So folks, we need to go in there and make sure we make clear. I'm pretty sure the community board is on our side, but let's make sure they know how many of us there are here. But we have to send a message to our elected officials, to the city, that we oppose this plan. It is a lie. There's no justice and equity in this plan. This is payback to the mayor's developer, donor, friends. It's selling out our neighborhoods. It will destroy what makes them great. It will make the challenges they face worse. And it will destroy forever a piece of New York City that people have loved and valued for generations. Thank you very, very much. Let's all head inside.